Welcome friends to another r/AskReddit video. If there's only one thing I can ask of you, it's to make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. And our question of the day is by Sketch99. What made you quit a job on the spot? Raspberries Are Evil wrote, back in 1998, I was working for Dell selling computers over the phones. People were not quite ordering online yet. Anyway, it was so easy. I was making close to $100,000 a year because of how the commission structure was, living in Austin as a 23-year-old. So one day my manager asks me to train a new team of salespeople because I was one of the top sellers on the floor every month. I turned this group into the most bad-to-the-bone sales team. My crew of 8 were all in the top 20 every week and were kicking butt. After 2 months, I show up on a Monday and none of the salespeople are there except my team and a bunch of other new faces I hadn't seen before. Turns out Dell didn't like paying commissions and health insurance and 401ks, so they fired all of the salespeople and replaced them with temp workers making $12 an hour. My entire team was the first group of temp works. I wasn't aware of this. They were told they had to prove themselves and be converted to full-time with benefits. They were never going to do it. I told them they can all go screw themselves and quit. I heard that week they cleaned house and everyone, even managers who told me what was happening, were gone and were all replaced by temp hourly people. Isn't this one of the slimiest things you've ever heard? Imagine coming in, doing a killer job and being told, here, train all these people. And you spend all that time getting them up to speed and you've got this awesome bad-to-the-bone team and you're operating like clockwork. And then they go, thanks for the profit, by the way, your whole team, gone, they were temp workers. They were making pennies, don't worry about it. Wouldn't you feel utterly backstabbed and wanting to get out of there? Let me know in the comments down below. This next answer was written by Desert Knoll. I had a very stressful job and was expected to answer Slack messages from my boss at any time or I would be fired. He was in a different time zone, so often I would be woken up at 3 a.m. being yelled at to do something. One day in the office, he was talking crap about me on Slack and accidentally posted it to a channel I was in. I was killing myself for this guy and he didn't even appreciate it. I packed up and left. Best thing I've ever done. As far as things that would make me quit a job on the spot, being blatantly talked about so badly by an employer is definitely pretty up there. Who wants to work or spend any amount of time in a place where you don't even feel welcome? This next answer is by LonnieJaw748. At 17, I was a young line cook at an upscale Italian restaurant. I was picking everything up so quickly, I knew all the stations on the line within 10 months of hiring. I was getting minimum wage at the time, $7.25 an hour, and asked for a $1 an hour raise to reflect my diverse capabilities. Got denied and asked the chef when I could get it then. She said, "You're too young for a raise, just be happy with minimum wage." In response, I said, "I may have to start looking elsewhere for a job who will pay me what I'm worth." She then said, "Don't you know how expendable cooks are? If you leave, I can replace you on the spot." So I did. A Sunday evening dinner service, very busy, at the height of the night, I and my friend who I got hired took off our aprons and walked off the line towards the front door. He came with me in solidarity, plus I was his ride home. Felt good for a day or two, but I've never quit that way ever since. Been in the service industry for 23 years now. Partly echoes the last story where you just don't want to work in a place where you're not valued the way you should be, and also it's just important to note that you need to know your own value, you need to know your own worth. OP knew what they were capable of, and it wasn't $7.25 an hour. The next quit on the spot answer is by Mercutio199. Total opposite, but it's a good story in my opinion. I worked at a very dysfunctional family-owned company. They put me on probation because the family member, my boss, in charge of IT, convinced everyone else he was a genius and could do no wrong. So whenever something happened bad related to IT, he'd just blame his underlings and everyone in power agreed with him. A few weeks later, when I got the dream job I have now, I said in the exit interview one of the main reasons I was leaving was because I was tired of being on probation for 3+ months. They'd actually taken me off probation, but never told me. I still would have left regardless, but the fact that they never got around to saying, "Hey, we're not about to fire you," blows my mind. I'm just imagining a situation where anything goes bad and they go, "Hey you, more probation for you," just sitting there with their hands up like, "What did I do?" I totally understand this one because who wants to be working all day walking around on eggshells? For stuff especially you didn't even have a part in. Our next quit on the spot answer is by ADP Cook. Not on the spot, but I was passed over for a promotion for a role I'd been doing unofficially for 6 months. There was no official position for it when I started doing it. It was one of the manager's responsibilities and they delegated it to me. Honestly, I was happy to do it, and I was frequently praised for how efficient and thorough I was doing it. So when an official position opened up to do it full-time, I seemed like the obvious choice. A bunch of my coworkers didn't even apply for it because they told me they didn't think there was any point since I was obviously getting the job. They gave it to a guy that worked in a different department and had no experience using the complicated system required for that job. Then the manager asked me to train him in it, except I wasn't really asked. I was told in a way that sounded like it was asking. We called it being voluntold. I refused. I said to the manager, if I'm not good enough to get the job, I'm not good enough to teach someone else how to do it. The manager then accused me of throwing a temper tantrum. I quit about a week later. Honestly, that wasn't the only reason. That was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Even the other managers couldn't believe he said that. All I know is when you're in a managerial position and you got people underneath you that are doing grinding work, giving you so little problems, those are the people that deserve to be rewarded for their good deeds, not passed over. Even if it's bittersweet for them to give up a position that they're excelling in to move up the chain, that's what they deserve. You want to try and help people move forward in life, don't you? Our next answer is by Just Me and My Girls. I worked as a manager in this really awesome cafe/bar. My interview was basically drinking a bottle of wine with the owner whilst chatting. Totally relaxed vibe, local artwork on the walls, which she sold for no commission, indie music as background noise so you could still have a conversation, etc. One of the guys who worked there was in a band and would often go on tour, and she always made sure his job was waiting for him when he got back. Fast forward 3 years, and she became pregnant with twins and decided that she wanted to be a som. So she sold the place to a young guy who purchased it as a gift for his fiancée. A nice gift, no? But it soon became apparent that he did this because she couldn't actually hold down a job due to even the most simplest of tasks being entirely beyond her. It took me 4 weeks to teach her how to use the coffee machine. She spent the evening shifts giving freebies to her mates, and she totally gave up on using the panini machine. After finally mastering the coffee machine, she announced that they were going to be redecorating, so we would either have to take a week off unpaid or use our holiday time. Everyone was forced to use the holiday time. Came back a week later and we totally didn't recognize the place. It now had white walls with huge TVs blaring out dance music and a space that only had 12 tables. So loud that we couldn't hear what anyone was saying. We checked the rotas and I had lost 10 hours a week, but the band guy had lost 20 hours. Naturally, we asked, what the freak? And she informed us that she could run the place without us, so she cut out our hours. We asked if they could delay the new rotas by a month to give us chance to find extra work elsewhere. I was okay as I had a second job that begged me to be full-time, but the band guy didn't. She said that as we didn't have a contract with her, she didn't have to give us any notice. Not gonna lie, I was fuming, so I took my apron off, placed my keys on the counter, and said that as we didn't have a contract, I didn't have to give any notice that I quit. Then promptly walked out and never went back again. The place closed down within 3 months. Alright OP, now that I know how the coffee machine works, I don't need you anymore. I know how to run a shop. I'm glad you do, because the only run around this shop I want is to run away. Our next answer is by Hollow. My first job in high school was washing dishes at a pub. I got it so I could buy my girlfriend a necklace that she wanted as a Christmas present. Come New Year's Eve, they decided to put one person on dishes for a packed evening. I was quickly inundated. Close at 10 p.m. and at 11 p.m. I'm still doing dishes and this fat witch chef is watching me laughing about how I'm not gonna be able to spend the New Year moment with my little girlfriend. I just said, I just remembered I don't need to do this, and walked out of that place and never went back. I'll never know that freedom again. What is this, a terrible Hallmark movie villain? You'll never get to spend your New Year moment with your little girlfriend. The only thing that would have made this even more perfect is if OP quit, walked out, and there was a free taxi there like, why are you looking so down, OP? Well, I want to spend New Year's with my girlfriend. Taxi driver goes, you know what? I gotcha. Hop in. Let's go. and they drove off into the sunset. Our next short answer is by Valerie Frizzle. Owner pulled a gun, unloaded, on us during training to prepare us for armed robbery. See, I think the proper response in this situation is to stand up, run out the door, and just keep on running and never come back. Our next answer is by Kay the Mad Scientist. Worked at a restaurant as a server. We just catered a large wedding reception. The owner's wife was chatting with the wedding party all night and occasionally getting the drinks. At the end of the night, she said she's taking her share of the tips since she helped so much. I say fine even though that's illegal in our state. An hour and a half after the party ends, the restaurant is still a mess, and the owner's wife is just standing around talking while I was supposed to clean up. It was almost midnight, and I'd worked my other job earlier that day. I walked out without saying a word. They ended up giving me all of my tips on my last check. You know, OP, I was doing a lot of serving, so I think I deserve half of your tips. And I think I deserve to get out of here. This next answer is by WhoCares023. Not quite on the spot, but the manager was telling the new hires, which included me, how he beat the crap out of someone for some reason that I can't recall. Apparently, the court case had been dragging on for quite some time. Alrighty, little crazy, but what manager is completely sane? Then a few weeks later, a hurricane comes through. Pretty bad. My house only lost power for a day, but most of my coworkers lost power for at least 2 weeks. So we eventually go back to work, and the manager's telling us the harrowing story of how he managed to find a generator when a hurricane's coming. I'll spare you the details, but it's pretty much impossible to find a generator if a hurricane is about to hit. So this nutcase is trying to install this generator at his house and sees someone driving by, eyeballing his generator. Or so he imagines. Like any completely normal person, the manager pulls out a gun and fires a few rounds into the air to scare them off. I can only imagine what the poor person driving by thought when he saw this jerk pull out a gun and start shooting. In response to the gunshots, his neighbor comes running over. Why has no one called the cops yet? To see if everything's okay. My manager tells him that someone is trying to steal his generator, and if it goes missing, he's going to hold the neighbor responsible. At this point in the story, my mouth is hanging open and I'm like, what the freak did I just listen to? This man is insane. Why is the neighbor responsible for his generator? None of this makes sense. I slowly noped out of that job. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he ended up murdering all of his coworkers one day in a fit of rage. Yeah, I don't know about anyone else, but that is an example of a person that I would not want to get to know. There is in no way that I would want to be on even remotely even first name basis with this guy. If they remotely know who you are and they can get some form of contact going with you, it's gone too far already. Our next answer is by Canned Cream. My first job was working as a dishwasher at a seafood place. I wasn't hired as a dishwasher, I was supposed to be a busser. They just shoved me on the washer and left me there. One of the other employees there was an elderly man who worked alongside his wife and grandson. Every day, he would find an excuse to walk up close to me and put his hand on my butt. He was a 70-year-old man, and I was a 16-year-old boy. I should have reported him, but I doubted anyone would have believed me since he'd been there for years and I'd only been working for a month. I just called the manager, told her I had to quit for school reasons, and never looked back. Isn't it sad that in this case there was a predator working at this place and OP felt like they wouldn't be believed, so their only option was to quit? Humanity has to do better than that. And our final answer of the day is by Terrapin Recordings. I had worked for a cleaning company, and I had a total disaster of a person named Tina as my manager for about 4 months. Tina would work the night shift with a crew and basically did nothing. She would leave the majority of the work for me to do during the day when it was a lot harder to do, as I had my own list of duties as well as whatever she left for me from her own list. I was teetering on the edge of quitting, but I hadn't found a replacement when one day I got a call from head office that Tina had quit, and for about a month the job was exceptionally better, and I effectively was my own boss. Things were going remarkably smooth for again about a month when I got a text message from Tina asking me to do a bunch of extra stuff. I called the owner and they told me that Tina had approached them about coming back and that they were rehiring her in her former position. And I literally just packed up and walked out about an hour into my shift. I had zero intention of working another minute for that woman and held to it. I don't know who Tina is, I don't know what the job's like, but the minute I hear about Tina being like, "Hey, so I'm coming back, can you do a bunch of extra stuff for me?" is already enough for me to be like, I'm done, I quit. Do it yourself. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.